Hey, hey, hey. It's Filter Free Friday, y'all. Listen, I am so glad y'all are here. So glad y'all are here. I had a friend, his name was Rick, Rick Robson, and I tend to think about Rick whenever the weather is drastic because Rick was one of my primary sources of information as relates to climate change. He helped me understand that as the earth is warming up, that we get all of these weather events that are, you know, super cold in some places, polar ice caps melting, unprecedented heat in other places, because the earth is warmer than it needs to be. And he was one of the first people that I heard say the words, the earth is going to be fine. You don't have to save the earth. The challenge is it will kick us humans out if we don't make it. And it happens really cold right now in Missouri. And so when I set my thermostat much lower than I like it to be, and my nose is cold, I think about Rick. But I also bring him up because this week I had an opportunity to be with the African American Student Union at UMKC for their annual MLK breakfast, which has been rebranded, the Freedom Breakfast. And one of the things that I shared with the young people was that unity is incredibly important, especially in times like this. And unity sounds really good in practice, but in theory, excuse me, but unity in practice is harder. How do you unify with individual people who um, maybe the group for which they belong is doing things or has done things that you vehemently disagree with or historically have? But Gallup used to have this question on the employee engagement survey. And the question was, do you have a best friend at work? And Rick and I used to complain about that question because we were like, what do they mean, best friend at work? You know, my best friend was working at another organization in the manufacturing plant. She didn't work there. I took the question quite literally. But what it meant was, did you have somebody, a trusted partner that, you know, you could have your real conversations with, not that artificial harmony? And what I liked about Rick is that he was very well informed about all the isms in the world. When he died 4 years ago, he was 70 years old. So he had lived through a lot, but as a musician in a band and as a track star for his high school, he got a chance to be in drastically different environments all the time. And what I knew about him as a person, and this is the thing that I think is hardest for people to understand. At an institutional level, yeah, there are themes and there are patterns, and you need to be well aware of things like racism and sexism and all the things. But on an individual level, you really do have to look at people as people. And Rick lived that, and he reminded me of that. There were times when I'm sure I would say things that he disagreed with. And I'm sure that there were times when he would say things that I disagreed with. But in the end, we knew that if we were going to help save the environment, do our little share towards saving the environment, that we had to work together. He was my person. When I turn on my lights in my kitchen, I think about Rick. It was Rick who came over during COVID, and I had been um, taken for some money by an local electrician. It was Rick who fixed my lights. It's Rick. Rick's my friend, you know, and it can be quite confusing in moments like this when you know that everything for the groups with you that you are a part of, everybody doesn't care about that thing, right? Like I am a woman, and sometimes when I am in all Black spaces, women are treated in ways that remove our dignity, or at least try. I am Christian, and sometimes I am in Christian spaces where there are folks who would, again, subjugate me, try to anyway, because of my Christianity. I am an academic, and I can be in spaces, barbershop, where being a woman who is smart is something that subjugates me. And the same is true for those spaces where I'm think I'm separate because of age, those spaces where I think I'm separate because of being heterosexual, those spaces where I think I'm separate because I grew up in poverty and understand what being impoverished looks like. We all have our unique situation, right? Um, all have our unique situations. And hatefulness wins every time because of distraction, division, and destruction. If I can distract you, keep you not focused on the things you need to be focused on, and if I can divide you, keep you from unifying for whatever your reason is. And I listen to me. I know you have really good reasons, exceptional reasons for being disunited, not unified. I'm sure that people have stepped on your feet, right? But progress, not perfection, means that sometimes in my life, I'm going to engage in things that waste my time. Sometimes in my life, I'm going to engage with people who break my heart. Sometimes in my life, a person is not going to think, feel, or believe everything I think, feel, or believe. But if we are going to get out of this thing on the side that looks even close to dignified and humane, we're going to have to come together. We're going to have to come together around things that hurt us. We're going to have to come together around things that infuriated us. We're going to have to come together around things for which there are some edges in which we disagree. I don't know a singular person who agrees with me on everything. Rick would probably be no different. But what I loved about him was that in his infinite wisdom, he always maintained hope and optimism. Always. And I miss my friend. I really do. He would be, I think, 75 had he lived to see today. And I hold up our relationship because we didn't come from the same background. We did not share the same unique experiences. And what we cared about together was the environment. I did tell this last funny story and then I'll let you go. I gotta get out of here. But we went to this place called Shadow Cliff in Colorado, and we went on a walk. It was cold. It was snow outside. I had to get some shoes that were appropriate for the event because I don't do things like hike. And while we were out there, we saw goats. We saw things like mountain lions, and we saw moose and elk. And what was fascinating about them was that on this 3-mile walk, folks were trying to take pictures with these animals, right? And the first day I went with them and we saw moose mating, and some of the folks got out of the car to take pictures. Now, Rick didn't do so, but his friends did. And I was like, you know what? I'm going downtown tomorrow. And they were like, you're not going to go on the walk? And I was like, nah, somebody has to live to tell the story. And what I believe to be true is that there are certain things that distract us. At this very moment, I've got a couple of folks who are commenting on my hairline. Meanwhile, we've got men and women and children being attacked on a daily. Our homicide numbers in my own city are at 8 right now. Every single day in this here United States of America, 1/3 of our citizens find out that they have or are being diagnosed with cancer. Cancer is what took my friend Rick out. And one of the questions that I left for the students at UMKC this week was, you can be distracted all you want. You can be distracted all you want. You can decide that you are not going to work together all you want. But at the end of the day, those of us who can focus, those of us who can unify, even when there's certain things for which we vehemently disagree, we're the ones that are going to save the heart of this nation. I believe we have a good 20% of us who are focused on that. I believe in Malcolm Gladwell's research that we only need another 6%, the tipping point, the critical mass at which things tip in favor of what we want them to be is 26%. And we choose to go to the hateful. Right now, it is incredibly difficult for me to ignore the ridiculousness that's showing up in my comment section from YouTube that's talking about my hair. If you know me any length of time, this is my forehead. My birth certificate father used to say, because my hair grows up to the sky, that I have the forehead of an African goddess. And when you're 7, you can be distracted by people who have these small little foreheads who suggest to you that that is how it should be. I have always been able to put my whole hand on my forehead. And so, yes, do I still get distracted sometimes when people make comments about those things? Sometimes. But in 2022, when I learned that my birth certificate father was not my father and my father was an 80-year-old man, my biological father was an 80-year-old man, then my forehead makes sense. Then I get to see the ethnicities from which it comes. And then I understand that it is not something to celebrate or not to celebrate when you look different from someone else. But what I left with the students at UMKC was this. Would you be different? Would you see it differently? Would you understand it differently if the cure to some disease you had was sitting in some ICE detention center? If the person who was on the brink of understanding something that was plaguing you was being kept in a county jail waiting for deportation. You see, when we think it benefits us, we're willing to overlook policy in favor of people. And all I'm asking you, Sugar, is remember there are people at the end of our data points. It's filter-free Friday, y'all. We got plenty work to do.